Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to return to Denmark and we're going to revisit a brewery who are quite rightly highly regarded by Danish craft beer lovers. Their beers tend to be very good. So we're going to return to the island of Fyn and Indslev Bryggeri, and we're having a look tonight at another one of the Ugly Duck Brewing Company beers. This one is called GoldenEye and this one should be quite interesting. It's described as being a Belgian blonde or kind of Belgian golden ale, but it has an American hop in it. It's got the Simcoe hop, which gives you some really nice kind of piney and sort of tropical fruit flavours. So I'm guessing that this one will be a kind of hybrid beer, so should be a very interesting one for us to try. But anyway, I have to give a thank you as well to Mike and Anders at the brewery. They sent me a big box of 14 Indslev and Ugly Duck beer, so a big thank you to you guys for donating to the channel and supplying the beer for this. I hope you guys enjoy the review, as well as those of you watching this as a kind of fan. But as always, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual websites are in the video description below. That's the Indslev and Ugly Duck websites, the links to my reviews from both brands too, and there's all the usual social media things, Facebook, Twitter and Untappd, so please follow me on there. Your support would be much appreciated, and if you do want to see more beer reviews, just subscribe to the channel. And I apologise in advance to my Danish viewers for my very bad Danish pronunciation. I'm still learning Swedish, so it will take me a bit longer to get a hold of Danish, so please bear with me on that. But don't hesitate to let me know some of the other Danish beers and breweries that you'd like me to have a look at. The standard there is very high, so I'd be really interested to try some of the ones that you guys suggest. But anyway, to tell you about Ugly Duck Brewing Company and Indslev Bryggeri. So Ugly Duck, like I mentioned, are one of the brands of beer brewed by Indslev Bryggeri, who are based in Nørre Aaby near Middelfart on the island of Fyn in Denmark. So if you go to Copenhagen, that is Sjælland. If you go to the west a little bit, there is Fyn, and like I said, this little town is in the northwestern part of that island. But Indslev Bryggeri has roots that trace back to the year 1897, but they only reopened as a modern brewery recently, back in 2006, and since 2012 they've also been brewing the Ugly Duck beers as well. But the brewery is owned by Anders Rasmussen, and it was his great-grandfather Frederick that actually built the brewery back in 1897, and both of these guys have grown up on the family farm right next to the brewery. And this is quite a common thing in Scandinavia, in fact, for breweries to be based on farms. It seems to be, you get these little traits all over the world, and farm breweries are actually very common in Norway, Sweden, and I think in Denmark, and probably in Finland as well. I'm not too sure about Finland though. But Indslev were actually the first modern brewery in Denmark that specialised in the brewing of wheat beers, and they actually remain the only brewery in Denmark to do this today. But their desire to brew different beers was what led them to found the Ugly Duck Brewing Company as well. And as I said, Ugly Duck is just a bit of an offshoot of Indslev Bryggeri, and they're all brewed in the same building. But under the Ugly Duck name, you can get like Belgian style beers, German beers, the more American styles as well, some Baltic porters and all of these sort of things. So Ugly Duck are really a kind of quite diverse brand, but Indslev Bryggeri are exclusively wheat beers, and the wheat beers are pretty nice as well. But the two brewers at the brewery are Stefan Peter Stadler, who is from Munich, and he graduated as a brewer from Hofbräu, a very prestigious company of course, and he's worked in various German and Danish breweries. And there's also Torben Steenhold, who previously worked for Velje Bryggeri and also for Brockhaus Bryggeri as well, two quite well-known Danish breweries. And the brewery building has been modernised, and they've got a brew kit from Kasker Schulz in Bamberg in Germany. That's a bit of a beer mecca of course, and Kasker Schulz is a very kind of prestigious name when it comes to brewery equipment. So they've got a very good kit there, and they're producing some pretty awesome beers as well. So if you haven't tried any of the Indslev beers or the Ugly Duck ones, do go to Copenhagen or somewhere else around Denmark and get a hold of them. They're pretty good, and the ones I've tried so far have been really nice, and there's still quite a few reviews to come for you too, so I'm sure I'll be able to tell you some of my favourites at a later point in time. But just to list some of these other beers for you, under the Indslev brand, as I said, wheat beers, there's Sortfede, which is the black wheat beer, there's the Påskefede, which is their Easter wheat beer, the Julefede, which is the Christmas one, Fede IPA, which is a nice kind of hybrid beer, that one is particularly good. There's the Fede, just which is the regular white beer, Fede Bock, which is a Weizenbock, there's another Easter beer called Frederikspaste, Morkfede, which is a dark wheat beer, and they also have the Frokost, which is a lunch beer. And under the Ugly Duck brand, they have their Imperial Vanilla Coffee Porter, which is very nice, Hoppy Christmas, Rye Porter, Helmuth Keller Beer, Miami Vice, Simcoe and Chinook IPA, Putin, which is a nice Imperial Stout beer, Ugly Christmas, Hop Devil, Foxy Brown, Papso in the Tropics, and they also have the Amarillo and Citra IPA. And they do have various special beers that they release as well. You'll have seen one of my reviews of those fairly recently too. But let's actually get stuck into this beer. So this one is a 5.9% Belgian blonde or Belgian golden ale, however you want to describe it. It's hopped with Simcoe, and it has a malt base of caramel and Pilsner malt, so caramel. I always screw that up when I say the videos. I want to say caramel, but I say caramel malt. But you can say either, I'm sure. But on the back here it says GoldenEye Belgian Ale. The sense of having something nice, soft, and a bit sweet in your mouth. Hey, wait a minute. Is that pine or perhaps lime underneath the rounded surface of the first taste? We took inspiration from some of the great Belgian masters and made this beer with our own special twist. The pale golden colour might make it seem cool, calm and collected, but lots of flavours are in there. We used only Simcoe hops for this cutie pie, making it crisp, dry and delicate. This beer could be a great choice for seduction, and it is pretty seductive itself. Enjoy it on your own, enjoy it with your loved one, and remember to enjoy life. 5.9% product of Denmark. Ull beer, 330 millilitres. So yeah, best before the 26th of October 2016. And as you can see, it's one of the plainer bottles actually from Ugly Duck. You can see it's quite plainly presented, but it's pretty nice actually. Plain bottle cap on this. So without further ado, we'll get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting here. This was one of 2 Ugly Duck beers that I brought back with me to Scotland. Unfortunately, the rye porter that they sent me, it survived the flight, but I accidentally, when I was unpacking it from the case, I dropped it, it hit a cereal bowl and it kind of exploded. So I'll need to find another rye porter to review for you, but this one did survive. It was just me being an idiot that destroyed the other one, but I'm able to review one of these for you at home, and the idea was just to kind of keep these ones coming out at a steady pace. So yeah, as you can see, this beer is poured a really quite bright orangey golden amber. If I hold it up to the light, it's it's definitely orange. It's not even really yellow, but it's a very bright kind of orangey amber, this one. There's a solid finger of a frothy white head there. There's just 1 or 2 wee bits of sediment in the bottom, some big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. But overall, it looks very, very nice. So without paying too much attention to the aroma, without sugaring it up, I should say, it's quite bready. It smells like your typical Belgian wit beer, if I'm honest. Yeah, it really does smell like a wit beer actually. You can smell the banana, that kind of typical Belgian doughy yeast in there coming out. There's a bit of pepper and a bit of clove spice, but overall this one's actually quite sweet. Just a little bit of those banana notes in there as well. But overall it's quite a sweet bready character that's coming out from this one. It does have a bit of that, of a kind of sweet wheaty character. Yeah, just a really sweet malt base to this, a typical Belgian blonde malt base. So let's sugar it up and see if we get a bit more from the hops in this. The other interesting thing as well is you can't, without sugar in it, you can't really smell much of the caramel either. But it starts to smell a bit sweeter, and it actually smells like quite a wet, grassy hop, this one. You can pick up just a little bit of the kind of juicier tropical fruits. The Simcoe hop, of course, gives you kind of peaches, a little bit of apricot, passion fruit as well. More the juicy, hoppy, the sort of juicy tropical fruits rather than the more sour grapefruit note. But you can smell just a little bit of that in there, but it really does stick more to this kind of typical bready, doughy yeast that you expect of Belgian beer. Quite a simple aroma in comparison to the other Ugly Duck ones that I've reviewed for you before. Reminds me quite a bit of the Indslev beers that I've reviewed as well. It has that typical bready malt base. There's a very distinct nose to those Indslev ones that I've reviewed so far, and this one kind of reminds me of that a little bit, but those wheat beers are very nice. Really good actually. Very smooth as well. That's the other thing I noticed about the Indslev Bryggeri beers. But yeah, really with the aroma of this one, it's a typical Belgian-y blonde aroma. That nice bready wheat, the wheat, or the bready yeast I should say, the doughy character, the wheat in there, it's quite sweet. A little bit of banana, a little bit of clove, a little bit of pepper, that kind of mix of things. There's a little bit of caramel, but that's quite subtle, and you can get a bit of the juicy kind of tropical fruit that you expect from the Simcoe hop. You can smell the breadiness. The Pilsner malt is probably what makes the aroma in this quite smooth. But yeah, as I always say, give your beers a smell before you try them, but let's get stuck into this guy. So this is the GoldenEye, a Belgian kind of blonde ale with American hops from Indslev Bryggeri's Ugly Duck Brewing Company range in Denmark. Slanja, skål! Well, that's quite interesting. Yeah, it's the malt base in this is very, very smooth. That's the first thing you're going to notice. It probably takes a lot of its traits from the Indslev beers, if I'm honest. the malt base in this is definitely reminiscent of these wheat beers that they produced under the Indslev brand, and those are very good. That's one of the big traits, like I was saying when I was looking at the aroma. These Indslev beers have this really beautiful, very smooth and very light malty character in them. But you can feel that there is the hoppy character actually starts to build in this as you move into the aftertaste. It's actually very, very subtle. This one is probably better to describe this one as more of a Belgian wit rather than a Belgian blonde actually, but you can debate styles all day. The most important thing is if the beer tastes good, and it's pretty nice, this one. Yeah, it actually mixes together quite well. It wasn't quite what I was expecting. It's nowhere near as bitter as a West Coast IPA. The hoppy character in this is a lot more subtle than that, and it actually blends together really well with the kind of bready and doughy characteristics in this beer. So you're from the middle of the palate. The middle of the palate is just blanketed with this nice bready character. You've got a bit more body in the middle. That's where the yeasty characters and a little bit of the spiciness is building. You can get a little bit of dryness right down the middle of the tongue. That's where the peppery and clove flavours are in this, and it's really nice. But then as you move further out towards the edge, you can feel those fruits from the Simcoe hop in there, and there is a little bit of the pine resin just underpinning that, the sort of floral aromaticity, and it actually feels quite wet. The hoppy character in this almost feels like a very wet, floral, aromatic, kind of fresh cut grass sort of thing. It's quite interesting just how all these flavours go in, and you can see why they say that on the label. They say it's straight up, it's a kind of Belgian wheat beer. It has that, but then there's a lot more complexity to this. The other things that are going on in this beer are quite subtle. The biggest focus is on the wheaty malt base, but the other things are really just very subtle flavours that you need to think about a bit, and it works really quite well, this. So yeah, one thing I'll say about this, I tried it at first and I was just like, it's alright, but then this beer is a bit of a grower. I think it's fair to say that the flavours in this, you have to let your palate adjust properly to this before you start picking up all of these different little things. So you should sugar the beer around the tongue a bit and before you start to dissect the flavour too much. But once your palate adjusts, you actually start to pick up the caramel. I was saying that you don't pick up too much of that in the aroma, but on the taste, you can pick up a nice little bit of that. But as you move to the hoppier parts of the beer, the hoppy character is actually very smooth. It's only really in the aftertaste that you start to get a bit more of the dryness from the kind of floral, aromatic and piney characters that you expect of the Simcoe hop. But most of all, mainly, there's a little bit of dryness in the back corners of the palate. As you move further forward, it's very smooth. Then there's a bit of dryness at the front corners, and then as you go round the front curve, it's quite smooth and almost grassy in feel. And then you go just behind the tongue. That's where that oily bubble that always gives you these fruit flavours comes out, and you have a bit of it's mainly a kind of mango and apricot-y flavour I'm getting from this, but you can feel a little bit of the slightly more sour passion fruit just backing that up, and that goes together quite well with these sort of subtle pine and floral aromatic characters that you get from this hop. The Simcoe hop is a really interesting one. It's a typical American IPA hop. It's really good, and this kind of hybrid that they've done, it works very well. As I said, it's not a kind of punchy beer, this one. A lot of things that are going on in here are quite subtle, so it's a beer that you sit down and you sip and you think about it, and it's really nice. I quite enjoy this. I like these hybrid beers because they really test the palate, and there's something a little bit different as well. And when you've tried 650 different beers, then this is one of the things that you do and quite enjoy reviewing. It's actually, now that I think about it, this beer actually does have quite a bit of it reminds me quite a bit of the Fada IPA from the Indslev one. There's probably some traits in it from that. I don't know if they used the Simcoe hop in that one. I don't think it's said actually on the website, but it does have some characters of that. So if you like that beer, you will enjoy the Goldeneye. I remember this one is a little bit more hoppy than that, I would say. It's a little bit less smooth, I think. The wheat beers, as I said, are very smooth, but this is another very solid effort from Ugly Duck Brewing Company. This is really good, this, and it's quite a light and sessionable one, so if you enjoy the kind of Belgian style beers, you will enjoy this one. But it's lower in alcohol content as well. It's 5.9%. So it's nowhere near as heavy as some of these Belgian beers, but again, it's a really, really nice one. To have the American hops with that kind of wheat beer works pretty well, I have to admit, and it's a really nice light zestable beer. So as I say, if you enjoy the kind of Belgian wit beers, you will enjoy this. If you want a bit more hoppy character, it has that too, but overall this is a more subtle one in comparison to the other Ugly Duck beers, so you want to think about it a little bit with the palate. But in terms of the mouthfeel, this one, I would describe this as being kind of between mid and full-bodied actually. But at the same time, it is fairly light and quite zestable, so probably mid-bodied is a good way to describe it. It's the wheaty and bready character that give this a bit more body. The carbonation is very, very smooth. There's a little bit of oily character to it. The malt has a bit of dryness too. It goes down the middle of the tongue, and it's quite nice. The malty character in this is very interesting and very smooth. It's got those typical Indslev Bryggeri malt smooth character, very, very nicely done. There's a bit of hoppy character, not really bitter at all, but it just lingers there. The floral aromaticity and the pine raisins just linger there on the palate, but it's quite crisp as well, and it's quite easy going and quite sessionable. So yeah, it's another very, very good beer from Ugly Duck Brewing Company. And I certainly wouldn't hesitate to try this on tap if I had a go at it. It would be quite interesting to see it as a bit thicker in the mouthfeel, just as you get from some of these cask beers. But overall, another very, very good beer from Ugly Duck Brewing Company. And these guys are very solid. A lot of people have told me it's probably fair to describe Ugly Duck as being a bit more like an old school American craft brewery, if you like. Like for example, their IPAs and stuff, they use the more old school American hops like Chinook and Cascade, sort of the more well known ones, and they probably fit into that. The sort of old school American style beers, and they do them very, very well. I have to admit, I do like the Ugly Duck Brewing Company beer. So if you get the chance and you want to start off on Danish beer, this is a really quite good brewery to start off on, with the likes of Omar and all of these other ones. It's a very, very good brewery this, so do go and check them out. And if you like wheat beers, try the Indslev ones as well. They're very good as well. But once again, I thank you for watching my beer reviews. I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's been really cool to do another one from Ugly Duck Brewing Company and Indslev Bryggeri. Go and check them out. Like I said, all the websites are in the description below. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer if you do happen to have tried it before, and there will be many more Ugly Duck ones coming up for you in the future. So until the next one, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Go and check out the social media. I thank you again for watching. There will be more from Ugly Duck and Indslev very soon, so stay tuned for those, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers just now, and have a good day.